Hello, and welcome back to the Lenko Show. This is episode number 105, and today we are going to be getting stuck into some performance enhancement questions where we're not going to be talking about PEDs, we're not going to be talking about the uh, illegal use of performance enhancers. We're going to be talking about purely what you can do as an athlete on a day-to-day basis. But first, Chris, I'm going to talk about the Euros. So, just to kind of put this into perspective whilst you're listening to this, it's clearly Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday midday. England played last night against Slovenia. Another, I would say, poor performance. Nothing really to get excited about. 0-0 draw, no goals, very few chances created. What's your assessment so far, Chris?
Shite. Honestly, I said this after the first game. Anyone who's listening who listens to that podcast after the first game, I don't think Bellingham played amazing in the first game. I think he was overhyped for playing average. I do think we strung some good passes together and had some nice bits of possession and stuff like that. But I think we've been distinctly average. And now that after that introduction, Alex, I've just thought, is it actually that we're shit? Or is it what everyone's thinking, which is that we're actually really, really, really good? We're just not playing that way. Or are we actually just shit? Because at the minute, in fact, you'll love this. You'll love this. And anyone who always listens to Alex and listens to the previous podcasts, you guys will be on this too. I heard something yesterday saying Gareth Southgate is happy with the way that his players are training. Now, Alex, you being you, what do you think to a comment like that, given the performances that you've seen?
I think I think you can be happy with the way that you're training, whilst at the same time actually being concerned that it isn't mirroring what you want to see on the field. I think those two things they can be separate. Like you can be okay with what's going on in training, but then you have to figure out what the actual problem is with regards to why you're not seeing those particular kinds of results on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the big thing. It's like if they're training, I would actually be less concerned if they were training like shite and then playing like shite, because that would make sense. It's like, oh, okay, they're not training well. Like, let's go back to square one and sort this out. But if they're training really well and actually just playing like dog shit, like, I don't really know what you do. And when we say playing like dog shit, if anyone's listening to this and they've not been watching England or whatever, my actual assessment is that we move the ball really, really slowly. We seem to not create any chances. We like passing the ball around, which is good. That's good. Passing the ball around is good, but we move it so slowly. One of the things that I notice is we try and attack the wings, and then in like instead of switching it in order to create space on the opposite side where there is space, we move it across from wing to wing so slowly that you've not gone anywhere. You've actually not gone anywhere. It would have been better just hoofing it back to your centre back, letting all their players come out and then just trying to dissect them again because we're just moving it so slowly.
I agree. I think the speed and tempo of play is a problem. I think part of the reason that's a problem is that, I mean, the players haven't become bad players overnight. They're not poor players. They're just mixing in with other teammates who they're not around all the time. Like they're not used to each other. It's very different when you go from a club where everything's second nature. Like when I got a new long snapper this year, went from using Matt Kellen was working with me, and then it's now Josh Fagan, and just having that change for such a simple, small skill is like wearing your shoes on the wrong feet. It's such a weird thing to get used to start with. Like it's just everything about it is different, and it takes a little bit of time to get through the gears and get things going. And what you're seeing at the minute, like the reason that everything is so slow is because everyone's slightly off beat with each other. it's very difficult. Like they're having to think. And as soon as you actually have to start thinking and you don't just habitually follow different patterns of play or what you would normally do and follow your natural instincts, things change. Like it takes more time, it slows you down, you question yourself, you take the safe option more often than not. Like there were so many occasions last night. So I had a team training session in the gym yesterday, and it finished at 8:30. So from 8 o'clock, we'd got the game up on the screen in the TV so that people could kind of, keep an eye on it whilst they were training. And once the session finished, I kind of wheeled over an exercise bike and a couple of other little bits of kit so I could just do a little accessory circuit whilst keeping an eye on the game and watching it. And especially in, say, not just the first half, but the second half as well, like even after Kobe Manu came on, to say there was a period of play where we really got on top, and for I would say 5, maybe 10 minutes, things worked faster. It was quicker, but it was still really frustrating because what we got into the habit or the pattern of doing is that I know you were saying we're playing wing to wing, but we're not playing wing to wing and playing like high forwards or high wingers. Like we're sitting in front of the fullback. The fullback is pushing forwards to mark whoever's there, like for instance, Bukayo Saka. He's coming out of position to get forward onto him. It's leaving space in the channel behind the fullback and inside the centre back through towards the corner flag. Like if you think, like when we play kids football on shit pitches, you just dink that ball over the top, fast pacey winger runs onto it, gets the ball, cuts across, pulls it back. But we had nobody making runs through that channel and trying to get in behind. There was no one doing it. Every time Kieran Trippier gets the ball out wide on the left, he never looks to attack outside. He's right-footed. He wants to cut back inside and whip a cross in. And you can't blame him for that. He's a right back having to fill in at left back because we haven't got a left back in the fucking squad who's fit and in reasonable shape and condition to play a full game. So, I mean, to be honest, I think for us to stand any chance whatsoever, if Luke Shaw doesn't play in this next game for half an hour to get his fitness up, we're screwed. Because I don't see how, with a team that's that unbalanced, with a right back playing at left back, you can actually win an elite level international tournament. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Really.
So I don't disagree with any of that, but I think my issue in that whole thing is what the fuck are you actually training? Like Trippier, obviously, you're not going to override all the years of him wanting to cut inside, etc. If that's what he normally does, or normally plays on the right, so that's what he's used to, playing it on his right. Well, that's what you should be fucking training. You should be training like attacking it, and actually, I guarantee if he did it just once, it's probably going to work because no one's expecting it. But I think that's the sort of stuff that they should be absolutely doing in these training sessions. They should, and I think in terms of being off tempo with each other and stuff, like if they're training so well, how is that happening?
Well, so this is I mean, did you see the difference of what happened when Cole Palmer came on?
Yeah, I actually no, I didn't. I fell asleep before then, and I'm not joking. I actually did. I actually fell asleep.
So Cole Palmer came on, and again, like there's glimpses where he's trying to get outside, and he is beating his man. He's taking him on one. Got a couple of free kicks. I think he had one or two unluckily given against him that I think were poor decisions, but he was actually looking like he was going to create chances and get through in behind and in that channel. But again, the amount of times it's so frustrating watching the ball in the middle of the pitch. Declan Rice will have it. They'll be popping it around between the centre backs and Declan Rice. They'll go out to Trippier and then they'll come back across to Kyle Walker. And you just think, open up on your right foot and slide it into Cole Palmer. Just release him down the channel. And we wouldn't do it. We didn't do it. He just kept taking a touch, having a, like, not even having, there were times I watched it and he didn't even look in that direction to where Cole Palmer was. I was thinking he's got 5 yards of space away from the fullback. Just give him the ball. Even if it's a bounce pass and you get it back, just give him the ball.
Yeah.
From short and it creates more space in behind because the fullback follows him. Little bounce pass, give and go and release him. Like there's just so many things that everything's just kind of sticky and they're all a little bit stuck. They're thinking too much. They're not playing with that freedom. And also the players that, you mentioned Jude Bellingham, he's just not performing yet. It's as simple as that. And I know when you say like training, like what the fuck are they doing? I I'm finding it difficult to get annoyed. You'd be surprised by that. I'm finding it difficult to get annoyed because number one, they don't want to do badly. People say, "Oh, like they get the money, they don't care," and this, like, sorry, but there's not a chance. There is no
Yeah,
chance that any of that is true. You think that you've worked your entire professional life, you're representing your country on the biggest stage, European tournament. You're going to get there and just enjoy being in a 5-star hotel for a few weeks, like training every day. Like, just it's complete nonsense to say that they're not trying or they're not giving everything they can. Like, they don't want to do badly. They don't want people talking about them like we are right now. They don't want negative headlines. They want people to be talking and praising them and bigging them up and saying, "Oh, we're going to win the tournament. It's coming home," and all that. And it's yeah, I don't for a second buy into any of that. That they're not trying or they're deliberately doing these things. I just think they're at the minute they're offbeat, they're off tempo, they're struggling, and I don't know. I think Gareth Southgate does need to freshen it up a little bit. Quite how you do that in the middle of May, because I think it's unsettled with the fact that he's been trying. He started the first 2 games trying to play a right back in the middle of the pitch. And I think when you go into it with that level of unsettled preparation, and then he hasn't really got anywhere to go. Like, he's got to take off big names if he wants to make changes. Like, I was looking at it at one point last night. I was thinking, right, well, realistically, that is theoretically our best team out there.
yeah,
Mainu, Bellingham, Foden, Kane, Saka. You ain't really going to swap many of those 6 for, there's maybe a handful of people in world football that you would change 1 or 2 of those positions for. So if you want to change it, you've then got to take off one of them. And you are damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because if they're not performing, it's your fault. If you take them off and it doesn't work out, it's your fault. You can't, it's so difficult. I think it's so difficult. And this is where I maybe, like, for instance, last night, I think with Southgate, I would have gone, do you know what? 30 minutes left. Let's roll the dice. Let's completely flip the script. Take off Bellingham, put Foden in as the number 10, maybe even take Rice off and put someone else in central midfield alongside Mainu, and just completely reinvigorate the whole thing. Put Cole Palmer up through the middle, get some pace out wide, and see what happens. Because Slovenia weren't really going to break us down. They weren't trying to score. They were happy for a draw. So it's a free hit. And
yeah.
I don't think we've found anything out. I don't think we've gained anything. I think maybe for the next game, I think Kobe Mainu starts. I'd like to see pace out on the left and Foden up the middle.
Yeah, I think.
Do you know what? Honestly, genuinely, I'll drop Bellingham. Because worst case scenario, it's not working out. Take off Mainu, Bellingham comes on, and you go back to what you had.
What is it? So I had a conversation with someone today about Harry Kane. Now, I'm not a big Harry Kane fan. I'm not saying he's rubbish at football. Absolutely not. I actually think technically he's one of the best finishers in the game, and he's obviously very, very good at scoring. But like, if you aren't getting even 40% out of him, there's no point in being there, regardless of how big the name is. Same for Bellingham. Same for Foden. Like, if you can't even get 30% out of him, and by the way, these players are that good that if you're getting 50% out of them, you're probably going to win games, but you aren't. We're not even getting that. So I agree, like, they need to change. And I was disappointed that there weren't more changes going into this game, where obviously, ideally, we still want to win, but it wasn't too important. Like, it would have been better to have actually switched things up and tried some new things.
And do you know what? We've got to win the next game. There was one point last night, I think it was in the second half, and Harry Kane was out in the right-hand channel, maybe, I would say, 10 yards back from Slovenia's box, but again, out wide, and he just turned and he whipped a ball in. And I can't remember who it was aimed at. It might have been Bellingham. And Lee Dixon went, see, now that's what he's in the team for. That's what Harry Kane gives you. And I'm like, well, if that's what he's in the team for, fucking play him in central midfield then and put someone else up front. Let him do a job in the middle of the pitch. If he really wants to play as a central midfielder, drop him deeper. That was one of the things that really irritated me in probably the Denmark game, where you just had Harry Kane coming short all the time, trying to get on the ball in the middle of midfield. You had Phil Foden drifting into the same spot, and then you had Jude Bellingham pushing forwards into the same area. And you've got three of your best players being marked by one Danish player who had a heart attack in the last tournament. You know, the guy tried to die. Christian Eriksen nearly died on the pitch 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, because it was 2021, wasn't it? But he's able to just stand there and mark all three of them because they're in the same space. And because they're all in the same space, no one's getting pulled out of position, and it's easy. It's easy to play against.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're referring to because I remember saying the same thing last night. I was like, it's a shame that he's the one that's played the passing to him because it should be the other fucking way around.
Yeah.
You
Well,
put Harry Kane on the end of that, and it's probably a goal.
just from a perspective of like, we'll move it kind of away from the football now and get into more of the topics of,
Could be annoyed about it all day.
yeah, but well, come this time next week, we might even be out of the tournament, so we
Yeah.
might talk about it then. Well, actually, no. Before we do move on, who has impressed you most from the games that you've watched so far? Just which team?
Which team?
Which team's impressed you the most?
Oh,
While are you thinking on it, I'll tell you who's actually really impressed me. Obviously, number one, Spain. They've won every game so far. I don't think they've conceded a goal. Pretty much nearly on flawless performances. Like, they've been good on the ball. They've been good out of possession. Demonstrated pace. They've got attacking players out wide that are full of running, like want to beat people. Like they I've been genuinely really impressed by Spain. And number two, genuinely, I mean this, Albania. I know that they've like, I don't think that they might have not even got a point, or have they got a point? But from someone that I would have, I kind of expected them to get battered every single game. But not only have they still kind of had close games, they've actually performed really well in some of those games that they've played. They've been disciplined, they've been strong, full of running, full of aggression, and they've created some really good chances for themselves. And I think with a little bit more quality, they would have won a few more games in a tough group anyway. So, like Spain for my number one, who I think will, I'm hoping, well, no, not hoping. I've got them in the sweepstakes. So if they do well, if they win the tournament, brilliant. If not, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, then Albania, Spain and Albania. Albania's my wild card one. I thought they did really well. I was impressed with them.
okay. To be honest, so I've not watched full games. As I said, I fell asleep watching England last night, so I've certainly not watched all the other games. I've not watched enough to say who's really, really impressed me, but I don't think there's a specific team for me. I think just the noticeable thing that I've noticed is this, like I've said, the speed and the tempo that the teams are playing at. Like even Slovenia against us, I thought they were fast and their counter-attacks were very quick and the way that they moved on the ball. I liked the look of Portugal. I thought they were good. And I tell you what impressed me, Cristiano Ronaldo squaring that ball to Bruno Fernandes when he was, well, 2-on-1 with the goalkeeper. That impressed me a little bit. Yeah, I don't know outside of that.
Well, I think, did you know that Germany scored more goals in their opening game against Scotland than there have been goals scored in England's group games?
So I heard it at some point during the game last night that we'd had like the lowest scoring group, which I think has been part of the problem. Like if England had been, I would have actually preferred if we'd have lost our games. This sounds really silly now, but I would have preferred if we'd have lost our games but played good attacking football that was entertaining to watch and we were scoring some goals. Like that would have been more entertaining and I'd have been more impressed by that.
No, you wouldn't. If we were losing, there's not a chance you would have been impressed. We'd be sat here slagging us off, going, well, we've got loads of attacking flair, but no defensive discipline. Like, there's no happy medium. We're never going to be happy as English football fans.
But I wasn't expecting the defense to be great anyway. but the offense, I was expecting to be really good.
Yeah. Um, right, so we will move it on now. Question for you: what, like, just in terms of the style of play and the way that England play, what do you genuinely find most difficult to come up against, either in team sports or one-to-one competition? What do you find most difficult to compete against?
Me personally,
Yes.
uh, people that are both physically and technically competent that actually work well together. Like it's evident that they train together to a high level frequently. I feel like when you come up against that, I'm thinking specifically of football, but this can be in any sport. Like in football, they will move the ball quickly. Well, it'll go exactly where it needs to go, and it'll have happened before you've even responded to the previous move. Like these kinds of teams, these kinds of players, it's almost like they're doing things before the balls even come to them. Obviously, I'm thinking of a football example there, but I'm sure it goes the same for most sports, most team sports. Like it's almost like everyone knows. And I thought, so this is my opinion, like within training, that's what they're doing. That is what people do in training. They train scenarios, they train like what we do over in this side of the pitch when the ball's here or when we're in this situation, blah blah blah. So it's like everyone should know where everyone's going to be.
You need to stop saying blah blah blah.
Apologies for saying blah blah blah. That's
Yes,
the last time I'll say blah blah blah.
I hate it. Don't say blah 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 again.
I apologize for saying blah blah blah. Like they should be training like and role playing those situations where everyone should be,
Yep.
which is why they're able to do it immediately, instantaneously, before it's even come to them. They're seeing it. It's like, oh, I've seen this in the small sided games. I've seen this in the five-a-side games. Blah blah blah. This is the exact same thing. Boom, boom, boom. This is where I go. This is where they go. Blah 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 blah. And it
Yep.
comes off, and it's very very evident if they're physically competent, not like physically the best, but physically competent, they're able-bodied and they're technically good and they do those things, like you got no chance. No chance. Have
Yep.
you heard of this game that's going around at the minute? Well, it's not going around at the minute. Some Russian game created by some Russian student or something like that. I think he was called Mr. Bloody Bloody Blah. No, he wasn't. Called Wolves. Have you heard of that?
I haven't. No.
So it's I promise this links in my head somehow. So basically there are I think there were up to 17 players in this game and two of them are wolves and only the wolves know who the other wolf is. And then everyone else is a villager. And basically the wolves it's kind of like imagine like heads down, thumbs up kind of thing. Everyone's heads are down. The wolves decide who they're going to kill. They don't actually kill people. Obviously, it's just a game. It's like, right, this person's been murdered overnight, blah, blah, blah. Everyone wakes up. And then the 15 people, the villagers, have to decide who they think the wolves are. And they basically,
It's just like a game called, it's called The Traitors. It's been on TV. Have you not seen it? Claudia Winkleman hosts it.
no.
We're talking about the same sort of thing. So yeah, I understand how the game operates. Yeah.
Okay. So my point to it is they explain that the reason the game was devised was it was to show that an informed minority will outperform an uninformed majority
Ooh, I like that.
all the time, every single time. And the Wolves will nearly always win. And I think they found that they won like 97% of the time, something like that. 98, maybe even higher. Um, so it just showed like the England situation right now, teams with players who are playing on the same hymn sheet, they're singing the same song, they're on the same line of the same verse. They are informed. They are informed. And therefore they play well together. And they will always be these amazing teams that have got your Jude Bellinghams and your Harry Kanes and your Trent Alexander-Arnold in central midfield and all the big names and all that shit. Because they're just not singing from the same hymn sheet. But that's what it was originally designed to show. And that's what I think of.
I like that. I mean, so I've written down here that the pretty much saying, following on from what you're saying, but the best teams operate on basic instinctive habits and patterns. That's it. You do things without thinking. It's like clockwork. It's like when someone asks you afterwards, how did you do that? What were you thinking at the time? And you can see everyone goes blank. It's like when someone scores an outrageous goal, someone goes, well, what were you thinking? I don't know. I wasn't.
Yeah.
So
Especially the Wayne Rooney volley against Newcastle.
yeah, well, he was just busy arguing with the ref and just thought, I'm just going to smack this and see what happens, didn't he? Like, well, it was. It's just instinctive. It's just, and once you get out of your head where you're actually thinking and you just start doing your skills that you've spent a lifetime building up and practicing, just they're allowed to flow. Relying on that kind of thing is far more efficient, effective. It's faster and it's just more empowering. So get out of your own head and don't think. The reason I ask that is because like I've got some of my teammates piss me off a minute. We're very
Not
close.
unusual.
We're very close to some rather, I would say, significant fallings out.
Right.
It's it's one of those things where there are certain basics and certain non-negotiables that I think some people take for granted.
Right.
As soon as you take them for granted, you have absolutely no. So all those things that we're talking about there, like you practice certain patterns of play in certain situations with certain players, certain personnel, specific people, and when people aren't there in the first place, it is really fucking tough to get anything flowing in the right direction.
Yeah, so my understanding of stuff like this is it is very, very, very hard to build a specific culture that you're looking for, especially one of like really high standards. And if you're looking at being winners and champions and stuff, you need to have high standards. You need to have higher standards than all the teams. And if people aren't showing up, eventually that'll become part of the culture. Like, especially, if these people are people who are important players and they're showing that they don't care enough to actually rock up to training.
And then you get a real problem where when people get called out on this particular kind of stuff from teammates, and this is like my perspective is like for a strong culture to thrive, like everything has to work from the ground up, and all that is left is for the head coach to just kind of steer the ship, turn it a little bit that way, a little bit this way, and the players in the team are the ones who drive the culture. Like the players have to hold each other accountable and to a standard so that coaches are able to just kind of leave the dressing room to itself. It manages itself and they can spend time on more important things. And I think it's always a bad sign when a coach has to start holding people accountable to the very, very basics that are like I said, non-negotiables. Number one, turn up. Number two, when you do turn up, fucking work and work hard. Be effective with your time. Be efficient. Focus on being better and improving your skill set, being a good teammate, and recognize that the purpose of doing everything that way is to win. It's what is your overall goal? What are you aiming for? And if you forget that, if you lose sight of that, you're fucked anyway.
Yeah, so I absolutely love Tim Grover
Yeah.
said it once, and he was like, he hates these people that say, "Oh well, at least you showed up," or "Turning up is half the battle," and he was like, "Turning up isn't half the fucking battle. If I rocked up to war and I was, I was there ready for battle, and then the enemy just run towards us, start throwing fucking javelins and stabbing, and I'm just there, I'm fucking dead. Turning up is not half the battle at all." He says it's the bare minimum fucking requirement. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm swearing so badly today, but it is. It's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Rocking up is the bare minimum. And if people can't even do that, other people will see that and they're like, well, why does this guy think he needs to show up?
Mm.
And then they'll start resenting each other. Maybe they don't pass them the ball. Maybe they slag each other off in the changing rooms.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a civil squad war.
And I think this is the other thing as well. Like when I don't understand why people don't like being held accountable. And when people get called out on stuff, if they, I think if right, here's a straight up hard fast truth. If you're an athlete and you're listening to this, if your teammate says something that upsets you, the chances are it's probably because it's true and you think it is applicable to you. Now, there are certain circumstances I understand where like not everything's the same, and that might not necessarily hold as a fundamental truth. But more often than not, the people that I see get irritated with their teammates who are calling out bullshit, it's not the person that's calling out that is the problem. Never. Because I think you've
Yeah.
got to have a special kind of cojones on you to kind of call someone out and be an absolute hypocrite at the same time. I think you get hit, you get slapped back down pretty quickly when that happens. But someone has to kind of hold the fort and say, this is the standard. You do not deviate from this. This is the culture. This is the way it's going. And if you've got a problem with it, you are the one who needs to change. Your behaviors, your habits, your patterns, your way of thinking is not in line with what is expected and what is desirable for us to thrive as a team or for you to improve as an individual. And this is something from Tim Grover as well. So a couple of his books, like two of the best books I've ever read, Relentless and Winning. And this one I think is from Winning. And assuming that you might have won before, you think you've got it all, you think you've got it nailed. Ultimately, it's not true, and no, you don't. Winning has no loyalty to you. No matter how long you've battled to become a winner, it just takes one split second to become a loser. That's it. Just one split second to become a loser, and then that's what it is.
Yeah.
And if you think that you can fix these kind of things in the heat of the moment, whilst momentum is with another team in a big game, you've got no chance. You've got absolutely no chance. You are up shit's creek without a paddle.
I actually, so I think based on what you just said there as well, it was Jack Canfield who's got some really good books. And I remember a quote from him where he was saying, feedback is your best friend. And if someone's talking about you, and he used it as a professional example, but I can't remember specifically what it was, something along the lines of, yeah, he's a great manager, he does this, does that, but he's always late. And you hear that and you get upset by it. But in actual fact, like you've it's just been made very clear to you. All you now need to do is start being on time. You've just been given the feedback, or you've become aware of the one problem that people have with you. You can now fix. Like if no one's saying anything to you, if no one's holding you accountable, you've got no idea. You're walking around thinking the dog's fucking bollocks, and you don't show up. People don't respect you because you don't respect the game. You don't respect the rest of the team. Like I nearly said it again. Then I'm really sorry. um, like feedback is your best friend. I'm not saying that you have to really, really like people telling you what you're shit at or what you need to work on or anything like that. I mean, if it's constructive, then it's useful. But if people are saying to you, like, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing that? Blah, blah, blah. If it comes from one person, I get it. If you would argue it, oh shit, I did it again. Sorry. So now that you've said it to me, I can't say it. I keep saying it. Actually, that's not true. I was already saying it, wasn't I?
Yeah, you did it a lot last week as well.
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't think I normally use it, but I obviously use
No,
it.
it's the first time I've heard you do it, and I don't understand where it's come from or why you've started doing it.
I don't know anyone else that says it, so I'll find it. Anyway, let's stop thinking about it. Um, feedback, feedback.
I'm going
If
to say
people,
it's one of those situations where I would like to actually sit someone down in that situation and go, okay, so tell me, what are you actually genuinely upset about here? Are you upset that someone said you're always late, or are you actually upset that you are always late?
yeah,
because one of those things affects the other, and we can change one of those things for sure. Like you just need to look at how organized you are.
Yeah, that's it. Take the feedback. If it's constructive, solve the problem. You might not even know there's a problem there if no one tells you. But I think that's what it is, isn't it? People don't want to think that they have any problems. People like
Yes.
to think they're
I
perfect.
I haven't got a problem. You're the problem. Problem isn't with me, it's with somebody else.
That is genuinely how people act, isn't it? That's what they think. They think
Yeah,
I don't.
because I mean, you and I, we both know like we're perfect. You know, we never get anything wrong. We do everything right. So we are well within our rights to virtue signal and postulate like position ourselves as the high almighty and the righteous amongst everybody else that we can do no wrong. And therefore, by us not doing anything wrong, it automatically means that everybody else is wrong.
I think my biggest flaw is I just keep saying blah de blah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like that's definitely up there at the minute. So in terms of, well, we're talking here about how can I be a better athlete? We're not even getting into necessarily the training side of things. So we'll just go at it from a personal mindset standpoint at the minute. Number one, turn up, and then number two, put some serious effort in when you do turn up.
We used to have this even as a PT team, guys, let alone in sports performance. Our PT team rules were rule number one, turn up. And that was like education day, make sure you're there. Community day, make sure you're there. Events day, make sure you're there. Sports day, make sure you're there. Sessions, make sure you're there. Rule number two, turn the fuck up. Like, make sure you are there and present. Don't just turn up, be there, engage. Like, what else is the point in being there?
Takes zero skill to do those things as well. And you do
Zero. And
And
do you know what?
honest, actually, no, genuine question. How many people do you think turn up and put out 100% of the time? What percentage of people or athletes would you say, like, if you just had to pick a random number that doesn't really mean anything, like, what would you say?
That turn up and put 100% in every time?
Yeah.
Zero.
I would say maybe like 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
That's how
I
low I
think
would put it. I wouldn't say zero because I think some people do that. And that's the reason that some of those people are at the very top. I think it's a very special kind of athlete that does it 100% of the time. So the point being, no one does it 100% of the time. I don't do it 100% of the time. I'm sure you probably don't do it 100% of the time. There's days where you don't feel like it, where you do make a decision to either sack something off or you go, look, it's not a smart thing for me to do today. I'm going to do something else instead. But if you can do it 98 or 99% of the time and habitually put effort in, and always be there early. Like if you can always be there and always be there early, if you have a bit of an off day or you have a day where you're just running at 50, 60%, whatever, that happens, but still put out, still try, do whatever you can. And that will put you ahead of 98, 99% of people, in my personal opinion.
yeah. Yeah. Interestingly, I thought about I don't know why this happened, but there's a common phrase that everyone listening to this podcast and you will know and have heard, and it's compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And I never really got it. I got it like, oh yeah, I should compare myself to who I was yesterday, but I never really got it in the sense of like, why? Like, I'm not gonna be there's not gonna be any significant changes from who I was yesterday. And how do I improve who I was yesterday in today when today is a different day and I'm doing different things? How do I improve that? And I realized that so I wouldn't say I'm young now, but I'm still pretty young. And I would say the generation I grew up in was with PlayStations and Xboxes and all that stuff. So if you're a younger person, hopefully you can relate to this. Think of yourself as a character, because you are a character, as it were, and you've got a set number of skills, okay, and you can rate them from, let's just make it easy, between 0 and 10. Between 0 and 10. If today you are a 4 across the board on everything, and you go and do a class and you learn some skills in this class and you perform pretty well, your 4 is now a 4.1 or a 5. Like, that's it. It's as simple as that. You have just, you today is better. You are actually better than you yesterday based on the skills you've got available. Like, I only clicked that last week. That it was last week, 29 years on this planet, that I realized, oh, I am actually, if I had a fight with me 3 days ago, I would beat me. Like that sort of thing. It doesn't need to just be like fighting or anything like that. It could be anything. If I was doing a French conversation with me 3 days ago, I'd understand more now. And the 3 days ago me wouldn't have a fucking clue what I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So obviously we both do Duolingo, and there's some days like I'm learning Polish and it's really fucking hard. Like,
By the way, everyone listening, Alex, you're actually doing a really fucking good job with it. I was looking on the scoreboard, looking at the stats the other day. Me, you've got half, I think half the streak I've got, and maybe 60% more score than me, something like that. Like you are on it, mate. You are doing a really, really good job. So kudos to you. Well done.
but do you know what? Even under those things, even though I've got a decent score on it, it is seriously difficult. And there are days where I sit down and I look at it and I think, I'm not even sure if any of it's sticking.
Yeah.
But but the thing, and you get through that phase, you go through that phase, and like I had a moment yesterday where I was like, oh my God, I know what that means. I was like, this makes sense. It's starting to click now. And it's one of those things that is just a cumulative over time. It just takes repetition, effort, put it into your habits and keep putting out, like turn up and keep trying, keep giving effort, because eventually it will pay off. And bear in mind, like we've already said, that only 1 or 2% of athletes that are kind of pushing in the first place will maintain it over time. So by sticking with it, you're automatically beating out 98% of your competition already by consistently turning up and putting out. Like that's taking care of 98% of the business for you. So if you keep digging deep, keep pushing through, eventually it's going to click. And those habits and patterns that you've formed to get you to that position are going to kind of tip you over the edge, and you will see the benefits from it. So with regards to, you know, how do I improve? What was the initial question we were talking about? It was how can I improve my overall athletic performance? So we're not even going to get into the training side of things today. We're going to wrap this up fairly shortly, but we've already got turn up, actually put some effort in. That I think the third thing that I would say is focus on creating those positive habits and consistent behaviors. And this is with regards to your training, your nutrition, your sleep routine. Those three areas in particular, you need to address. And if you want to form positive habits and you want to be able to do it consistently, I'm going to give you three key ingredients to do that now. Number one, have a trigger or a cue. Start the positive habit or positive behavior. Every single pattern we run off has to start with something. There is a trigger, there is a cue. There is something that sets the fuse. Number two, then perform and execute the behavior. For instance, if it's a case of sleeping with your gym kit next to your bed, so the first thing you do in the morning is get into your gym kit and go to the gym, that's a start. Number two, perform the behavior. Go to the gym, do your session. Number three, recognize that there is a reward to doing that. So recognize that you've done something good, like you feel like spend time actually thinking about how good you feel as a result of it. Like, you know, after you've done a workout, if you've done a proper gassy one and your breathing rate's up, your heart rate's up for a little while, you might be a bit sweaty for a little longer than usual afterwards, and you feel energized. Recognize that feeling and enjoy it. Forget how sucky it was whilst you were doing it, but recognize the positive side effects of that. And then know that you can go the rest of your day guilt-free. You don't need to worry about, oh, I've got to go and stress out about potentially going to the gym or not later. actually recognize that there are benefits to you doing that. So, number three, have those positive habits and behaviors. Number four, I'm going to say to be an effective athlete, let me know your thoughts on this one, Chris. Be organized. How big a role do you think that plays?
I certainly think it separates top competitors from what do you call them? Fringe players, bubble players, mid-tier players. It certainly separates the people at the top. If you're not organized, I try and think of this in terms of like cognitive space, and capacity in terms of what your output can be. If you have organized things around you, etc., then you have more emotional capacity to put into things like training, things like games, etc., etc. If you are disorganized, you're more likely to be in a state of stress, which, sometimes can be good, but more often than not, that's where you then start thinking and overthinking in performance, or you'll start making more mistakes, etc., etc. I always find that organization really helps with freeing this. I know this sounds really cheesy, but like freeing your mind and allowing you to properly focus. But in focus, I mean like flow, in the sense of perform, rather than, let's just use football as an example. Ball comes to me. Oh, I would normally side foot this over there, but he's not quite there yet. So shall I? Or I might try. Like you've already lost it. It's gone. Like flow rather than overthinking. Like free your emotional space and cognitive space by having things already in place, organized.
And then I think the final one that I would add is let me know if you'd add any more to this list, but have a specific goal and then actually share it with other people. I think that's huge as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one as well. I'm actually not sure about this because I guess it depends on the type of person that you are. I feel like you'd probably be good to answer this question, probably more so than me, but my opinions are mixed on this. So I think it's kind of 50-50. Some people say don't tell anyone because they'll start giving you their opinions, etc., etc. And I think a lot of people will, those opinions will weigh on them and then influence what they do next, or how they go about actually achieving the goals, or whether or not they actually achieve the goals, or even do the behaviors that will help them achieve the goals. And then obviously some people are the same. Some people are like, you know what, you should tell people because it adds that weight to you. It gives that amount of pressure. It's now not just you versus you, and some people let themselves down. It's now you and other people have expectations of you, and they have this idea of an identity of who you are and what you're capable of. So now you're more likely to go out and do it, if that makes sense. I'm not so sure. I think some people it works well for, some people I think it works against.
I think as a general rule, that accountability helps.
Oh, but so excuse me. If in a team sport, I think it's like there's no questions asked. Like you should have the goals and you should be talking to your team about it. Like
Well, I would
absolutely.
say even in an individual sport, like as an individual, you're gonna have a coach, you're gonna have a partner, you're gonna have people in your close circle that are rooting for you. I mean, you might have an agent. How much you want to share with them, I don't know. But you're gonna have a group of people that you need to rely on, and speaking to them about what you're doing is going to help you be accountable, and you're going to help. They will then help you form and keep those consistently good habits. Like, for instance, I want this podcast to be the best damn podcast for health, performance, and mindset in the world. Fuck it, why not? There we go. Start there. Do what you want with that, ladies and gents. I would really, really appreciate it if you found this episode useful. Give us a rating, give us 5 stars if you want. If not, don't do it. Just say be better. Give us some feedback. Give us some feedback. Keep us accountable. What do you want?
Constructive.
What more do you want? How can we make this more interesting, more enlightening, more beneficial, more life-changing and transformative for you listening to this podcast? If you really enjoyed it, please share it. Share it with friends, family, teammates, people that are just simply being dicks and not towing the line at the minute and not putting in the effort. They might actually benefit from hearing this. And if you're upset or offended by anything you might have heard in today's podcast, please do yourself a favor and go fuck yourself. Look yourself in the mirror. I don't mean that. Do I? I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of overreacting, getting carried away. Look yourself in the mirror and think, what do I need to change? What do I need to do differently to make me better? That's always the only question you ever need to ask yourself.
Hopefully, Gareth Southgate's been listening and he has a word with himself before we step out.
Yeah, Gaz, if you've been listening, my number is
Yeah,
thanks
don't
for
do that.
listening. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Chris, any final words before we go?
No, peace, love, and protein.
You keep going with that, please. It's better than bloody blah blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is it from me and Chris. Until next time, look after yourselves, train hard, turn up, be accountable, be a good teammate, be an awesome human, and execute. Lenko out.